the Everything But Politics podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Everything But Politics podcast. Super excited to be welcoming back Dr. Michael Foreit to the show, the first ever recurring guest of the Everything But Politics podcast. And we truly couldn't think of a better person to be our first recurring guest. So, Dr. Mike, thank you for joining us here once again.
Listen, I'm honored to be here for a second time. I hope my contribution that obviously was effective. It's like I'm on twice. But no, I love you guys, and I want to. If there's anything I can do to stop in and say hello to you guys and promote what's going on for whatever it may be, I'm happy to be here.
It's our honor. It's our honor. So we last had you here on the show in early April, over 6 months ago. What have you been up to since then?
Since that time, I've been busy traveling. I've been doing some teaching. I've been lecturing on stuff that I'm passionate about, things that I think will absolutely have an effect on every single soul who wants to listen to this show in terms of the number one reported problem in the U.S. in terms of medical costs is that of spinal care, neck and low back. And so I've been doing my best to help promote a different approach on how to correct those issues. So I've been in Dallas. I've been in Orlando. I've been in Orlando a couple of times. Been Dallas. I've been supposed to be in Riyadh on the 26th of this month, but that's not going to happen. I yesterday decided not to go to Riyadh. I was going to be talking in Riyadh at a conference, and I'm not doing that, but I'll be going to Dusseldorf and before Christmas time, before the holidays. And so I've been getting around, and I've been talking basically about decompressive therapy for the spine and what it means to an average person and how it plays into the entirety of what gravity does to us. And so, yeah, I've been busy. I've been moving out of a house, trying to consolidate. I got your father helping me get another home together. And it's been a really busy time. I've been going, burning both ends of the candle. And now looking at me, you can sort of see it. Yeah.
Great.
I can see it.
Wait,
yeah, how you doing?
I think, Mike, I think it'd be great if you could talk our listeners, take them a little deeper into decompressive therapy.
I just didn't want to start off with the spiel, But as you're sitting there, you got this gravitational compression on you. Okay, you got these how many pounds per square inch of force that keeps us on this earth, and what it does is that you got these little cushions that exist between your vertebra, between each bony vertebral body. And they're called discs, and they're a live item. They're like the consistency of a scallop, maybe wrapped with a few layers of bacon around them. And as we age, as I have, and we use our bodies and we hold things up with our head, or we play chicken fights like you guys may do in the pool, things like that, we have a tendency to compress these soft items. And when we compress them, we do what they do what they're supposed to do. They squish a little bit and they bulge a little bit, but typically when the process is over, they typically plump up, especially at nighttime, when we don't have any, or we have less gravitational force on them. They're live and they draw in fluid, and fluid means blood, and it means healing factors, and it means anti-inflammatory factors and fluid, just from the surrounding cerebrospinal fluid and tiny little vessels. But as we age and as we contribute to our gravitational compression, whether it's the job we do, whether you're sitting as you're doing at a desk, because when we stand, imagine when we stand, Merrick, because I'm looking at you, okay? Imagine that we have 100% pressure on our discs, okay? That's considered 100% pressure. And then we do this fancy thing called sitting down. Okay. And when you sit down, you just took out the flex of your knee and rotation of your pelvis a little bit and this arch support in your foot that's sort of springy. And all of a sudden, you've loaded those lowest discs in your body to now 200% of pressure because you've eliminated all this lower compressing assistance. And so what happens is as day to day goes by, we end up wearing out these little bushings, these little cushions that we have in our spine. And they get shorter in their height. Sometimes they bulge out. Sometimes it's just a matter of fluid loss. Sometimes it's a matter of just squishing them. If you imagine that you're working at the hospital and you have to transfer a patient, or you're just moving boxes, or you're moving a refrigerator, or you do things where you push groceries for a living, or you're lifting cartons of this or that, whatever it may be, we squish them. And they really don't have fabulous opportunities to unsquish totally. You'll see people with inversion tables and things like that, which really are helpful, but they really can't open things. They can help you maintain and help you unstress a little bit. But in order to reverse the process, I've been advocating for a device made out of Tampa, Florida, called the DRX 9000, and it is a device that has demonstrated that when we are under its forces, it can pull at maybe 170 plus pounds of negative pressure, which causes discs to retract, which increases spacing between the discs. And so, without getting into too much names, naming too many people, you guys are familiar with somebody who's had a microdiscectomy, where they go in and they will shave off an existing piece of this tissue that's been either extruded or protruding out of its normal space. And when it pushes out of its normal space, it typically will put pressure on either the centrally on the cord, or it can put pressure on existing nerve roots that exit both sides of the lower vertebra and also in the upper vertebra too. But this loss of space is like the ceiling coming down and the floor rising, and sometimes the wall getting tighter. And forever and ever, they've had options for us that include pain medicine. Okay, and you guys are familiar with the stories of how people do on pain medicine, yeah?
Yep.
It typically isn't successful. And they'll add muscle relaxants, they'll add anti-inflammatories, they'll do injections directly with steroids called epidural injections or facet injections. And those are minimally successful. When I'm talking minimally, I'm talking less than 1 in 10. I think an epidural is successful with a chemical attempt to reduce the size of a bulging piece of tissue. But they're worked into your algorithm for your treatment. So Evie, if you were to land hard on your bottom, slip and fall and land hard on your bottom, and you blow out a disc, the first thing they're going to try to do is, after they assess you and they recognize what you have, and they're going to recommend a course of steroids. They give you a steroid dose pack, 6-5-4-3-2-1 methylprednisolone, and you're going to take it for 5 days in hopes that that chemical burst will reduce this inflammation enough to make you feel better. And typically it doesn't. And you've just put in a product into your system that throws off your immune function. Steroids change your immune functionality and make you more susceptible to other things. They can irritate the lining of your gut, causing erosions leading to ulceration. If they do decide to give you the epidural, then they are going to give you this needle about that big, and it's going to be guided under a live X-ray, and they're going to inject this fluid into the space where they believe you're having your greatest problem, and it's going to cause you a memory that you'll never forget. It will absolutely be horrific. And you get to try that 3 times in a year. And I've not seen it work on its own to reduce a disc bulge or disc herniation, disc protrusion. I've not seen it work. I've only been doing this for about 27, 28 years. And so the kind of thing that I'm promoting, instead of having somebody have failure with an epidural injection or failure with multiple attempts with different medicine, and they get frustrated and they can't do the normal job, and somebody's paying maybe work comps for them to sit somewhere and not do the normal duties. They can't bounce. They no longer can jackhammer. They can't do their normal day's function. Well, they get depressed. They get upset, and what they're offered is typically a surgical intervention. And the surgical intervention means that somebody's got to get into the tiny little space, and somebody's got to create more space in order for them to alleviate this pressure that's caused by this piece of tissue that's sitting in this bony canal that's meant for your spinal cord, but it's closing the canal. And they call that stenosis. And it's the closure of the gauge of the central tubing where we expect our body's greatest wiring harness to exist. But when there's pressure on that, or there's pressure on the nerves that come from it, you are aware of it because it lights up in your head and you feel this pain strike in your back or your neck, and it goes to an extremity, either goes to your hand or your arm or your shoulder, or your low back or your legs or your foot or your ankle. And the type of approaches they take, in the old days, it used to be just what they called laminectomy, where they would just take the back part of the vertebra, they would just cut it off and take it out, and it would create this space for the disc to bulge. Well, when you take away bone that's there for structural integrity and stability, when you take that bone away, you've just created an instability. So what they recognize is that the spaces are getting shorter, okay, as we live. The discs, they become desiccated with less fluid. They become degenerated because we're lifting things all day. And all of a sudden, you got this space that's smaller. And all of a sudden, these vertebrae, they have a tendency to want to rub against one another at the edges. And they can shift. They can shift on one another this way. So what that ends up doing is causing irritation at the end plates or the peripheral edges of these bones, and we grow what they call bone spurs. And the bone spurs can further cause you pain and further cause you irritation and knowledge of this wear and tear, and they hurt. And so they're always making an attempt on going in and eliminating some of these issues that cause us this loss of space or encroachment on our body's wiring harness. The device that I like, the device that I believe is going to change the game in spinal care, is what's called a axial decompression device, and it's the DRX, made in Tampa. And what it does is it, while you're lounging on it opens these spaces, and it opens the spaces in such a fashion with a vacuum effect that it vacuums in hydration into the disc, making it taller, making protrusions, things that were blown out, making them retract into the space where they've belonged. Now, there's studies that are being done by the University of South Florida, a neuroscientist named Nathan Shalati, and there's a Johns Hopkins team that has now joined the effort, and they are they're testing the results of the DRX unit, and they're very excited. And I happen to sit on the medical. I'm sitting on the advisory board for the device with a researcher from Johns Hopkins, and we all believe that what we're witnessing is probably the greatest non-invasive, not even a needle, not even a stick into your back, not even the tiniest of instruments, because a lot of people will talk about minimally invasive surgeries where they're going in now and they make a cut that's less than an inch, and they can go in and they can grind away some of these bony spurs. They can grind away or cut away the disc material that's protruding. But you've actually made a canal. You've made a channel that the body has to now deal with and heal. And even in itself, that can become scar tissue and can become something that fibroses and becomes another point of pressure on the root of the nerve or on the spinal cord itself. So they're getting much more adept at a surgical intervention. And I'm not talking about people that have the wickedest. I'm talking about the general majority of all human beings. And most of us have had issues that you can relate to, either in your neck or either in the low back. And the type of device that I'm talking about is something that you stand up on, it reclines, you're belted, and it starts to develop its forces, and the machine pays attention to your reactivity. The machine pays attention to your body's input, so that if your body goes into a reaction, that it recognizes that it's got this little tension on it, the machine backs off for a moment. It does this hundreds per second, the understanding of what your body's feeding it. And so the device develops its forces on what they call a logarithmic curve. And a logarithmic curve was designed by a guy named Alan Dyer, who was the Minister of Health of Ontario, Canada, and then became the originator of a device called the vertebral axial decompression machine called VAX-D. And Alan's long gone, and the machine is a device that is it's not as effective as the DRX. The DRX was made in the same area, uses the same logarithmic curve, but it's been improved by Salim Musalam, who was the owner and the CEO of the company. And he's got people working all over the place in order to create the greatest device possibly for our backs. And the device got FDA approval for cervical decompression. The device is in trials right now to prove that it can handle and improve close to 9 out of 10 people that climb on board. Now, if we're talking about surgeries are a flip of a coin, maybe 50-50 with an outcome. Epidural injections are less than 1 in 10. A device that offers 90% improvement for whatever it may be, degenerative joint disease, facet degeneration, disc herniation, disc protrusion, disc degeneration, stenosis, whatever the diagnosis may be, this device is offering 9 of 10 people that climb on board is offering them an alleviation of their pain and suffering. And that's without fancy treatment. That's without injection. That's without loading them up on medicines to make them mask their pain. They just climb on board. The usual time that it takes for a quote disc herniation are approximately 20 to 24 sessions. And that may sound like a lot, but that's less than a month. And people will be walking around waiting for their insurance to a month to approve an MRI or approve a visit to a back specialist, somebody who makes their living with a knife. somebody who wouldn't necessarily consider a non-invasive approach. I made my living in Gary doing workman's comp medicine. I was the first in the city of Chicago to bring this type of device into the workman's comp fold. There was nobody using this device, and I don't believe there's anybody currently in the city, now that I am no longer working doing it, I don't believe there's anybody in the city that's using a decompression device for workman's comp medicine. So the choices that they have, an average worker has, is you show up at an emergency room. You know, you go in and my back's locked up. My jackhammer that I was using did its job and it went through the concrete floor. And as I tried to yank it up from the floor, my back lit up on me and I'm half bent over and I want to go into the emergency room. And you get there and you get a shot of a anti-inflammatory, typically called Toradol. And they hit you with this Toradol. They let you relax a little bit. They may ice you a little bit, but you're going to walk out the door with some anti-inflammatory medicine and something to control your pain and possibly a muscle relaxant. And there's nobody that's going to have tried, other than a chemical approach, to turn off what you're feeling. Nobody's going to have tried to affect what just caused you to recognize pain, other than putting things in your mouth or giving you injection. And when the injection wears off or the pills wear off, and you're still left with this compressed area, you still have something that you have to go and take care of. So they're going to refer you to the next orthopedist on the board who takes care of back. That may not be what he likes to take care of. He may just be a general orthopod. And God bless them, they do great work. But say you like to do shoulders and I come in with a back. And your approach is, oh, okay, we're going to send you for an MRI and then we'll send you for the pain specialist and some physical therapy. And we're going to see if the combination of those things doesn't improve you. And in my experience, typically it didn't. And I invested in a DRX close to 2 decades ago. And I'm a believer in it so much that I've had multiple ruptures of discs. I've ruptured my C6 in my neck. I've compressed my C6 vertebra. I've got 2 lumbar fractures with discs that are blown at L4 and L5. I've never had an injection. I've known that I can climb onto a device and reverse the squish that I had when I landed on my bottom on the driveway when I didn't see the black ice. I know I can climb on board if somebody falls into my arms and all of a sudden I've got their body weight, which I never anticipated, and my own mass to deal with, further compressing these little cushions that we have called our discs. And so what I've been doing is I've been lecturing to both chiropractors, MDs, some osteopathic physicians, but the chiropractors are the first ones that have embraced this device. And there's over 1,000 of them in the United States, and they do a fabulous job at providing care. The problem is that our insurance companies don't recognize this device as anything other than experimental. And what that means is that if you call and you say, I want to go for a axial decompressive course of care, which takes approximately a month's time, maybe 6 weeks, they're going to say, I'm sorry, but that's not covered. But what is covered is medicine, short course of physical therapy, with then epidural injection series. And if that doesn't work, we're going to talk to a surgeon. That's the normal course of care that we receive here in the US. And I'm trying to change that. I have found it to be my purpose to open eyes and to open ears and to open the head to see if somebody is willing to do an alternative that doesn't involve the potential for addiction of medicine, the reliance upon medicine to turn off a pain signal. That's horrific. to think that if I didn't have my meds, then I would be suffering. So what we're doing is we're trying to open up everybody's understanding that a device exists and it's growing. Not only has it been embraced by Hopkins, but it's being embraced around the world. The same device is currently under its what they call the CE, which is the Certification Europe, in order to be able to be sold in Europe. Yesterday, within the last couple of days, I made a decision not to go to Saudi Arabia, where I was going to be speaking at a medical expo in Riyadh. And with the climate being what it is over there, all I can do is pray for everybody involved. And I'm going to stay away for now. But I was going to be speaking about this device and how simply it works. I would tell you that I don't plan on stopping. This is something that I'm doing not for personal gain. This isn't something that I'm tied directly with the company's assets. I'm not being paid by the company to do this kind of thing. I just feel as if in my years of life and the benefit that I've recognized as a physician, this is something that I can't talk enough about. This is something that I feel so passionate about that I go and I speak without asking for a dime, like right now. This is something that they can't offer me money to talk about because I'm just so willing to do so without being reimbursed for my time. It's something that has benefited me throughout my career, where I've never had a surgery, I've never had an epidural injection, never had a facet injection, never had a nerve block, a nerve ablation. And the people out there that understand this, who know these issues, or if they have somebody that is going through this process currently, I would have them look up Excite, EXCITE medical, and I would see where the closest device is, and I would encourage them with every try, because even at Hopkins, they're recognizing nearly a 90%, if not greater, success rate with this device. They've embraced the owner, they've embraced the device, they're doing trials on, it's not approved. Well, hold on a second. Some of the greatest minds in the game are not only saying that this is the device, but they want to be part of its certification. They want to be part of its recognition. They want to be part of getting the word out so that unnecessary surgeries, spinal surgery, cervical and lumbar spinal pain is the #1 reimbursed problem we have as human beings. It's not heart disease. It's not cancer. It is spinal pain. And I'm going to step for a second. And I would tell you that, in my opinion, and with the time I have left in my game, I am going to continue to lecture, going to continue to give my time, for the relevance of the advancing of this device's acceptance. It's something that, if it's up to me, there would be one in every single town. And you wouldn't have these guys who can do that Captain Morgan pose, pain specialists, and they can do that Captain Morgan pose because they know that you want to come in and get your Norco, or they know that you want to come in and get your Oxy. But they have 3 attempts a year, according to all algorithms done by insurance companies. They have 3 attempts a year in order to go in and do a invasive attempt at trying to diminish your pain by splashing this bulging disc or this nerve root with a steroid. And they'll do it. And you'll look at these doctors and you'll say, Doc, I've had 3 a year for 7 years and it's never worked once. And they'll say, oh, maybe this is the one. Cross your fingers, okay? Cross those fingers and let's say a prayer that this is the one that does it. And it doesn't do it. And the kind of thing that I've been endorsing, the kind of thing that exists all across this nation already, mostly in chiropractic offices, is called the DRX 9000. And the DRX is absolutely the device that is going to change the way that back care is provided. We absolutely skip people that put their hands on individuals. And I'm talking about manual medicine professionals. I'm talking about chiropractors. And you don't have to go in and get manipulated. There are chiropractors who have these devices who will not manipulate. All they do is have you sign up and only get decompressed. There is no clicker. There's no table that has to be used, especially. And they're getting 90% of patients improved by just putting them on the machine with no other therapeutic interventions. None. Just opening the spaces up. And when you look at all the surgeries that they do for the spine, and you're talking about in the upper body, in the cervical region or in the lumbar region where we have our greatest amount of mobility, the thoracic region is mostly a stabilizing cage. But in the upper regions that allow us to have forward flexion and extension and rotation and side bending, when you have a loss of ability, you go in and you ask for help. And right now, you're sitting down in Miami, right? You're sitting down in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, Boca.
Yeah.
And your brother's in Bloomington. And I know you can find them in South Florida. I don't know if there's anybody in Bloomington, Indiana that's got one. I don't know who's got them in Indianapolis. I know they exist, but it's the kind of thing that you have to look for. It's definitely not considered mainstream. And the average primary care physician that takes care of most folks, when they have an issue that you tell them that you have pain going down your leg, or you have pain that's going into your hand, or your hand you can't grip with it the way you did, or you've got pain on both sides of your hands, and they convince you to have carpal tunnel surgery without ever looking at your neck. Well, these are the kind of people that should absolutely be seeking out and finding this device to increase the space they have between the vertebrae, because it is the closure of that space between your vertebral bodies that forces the softer cushion out of its normal space that it exists in. And to think that all you have to do is just reopen that space and that disc will draw back in. And they're getting, in some places, they're getting 92% improvement, 92% success. I'm going to use the number 90 because that's what most people are getting, but they're even getting higher than that. I was just going to throw down the one that's the greatest accepted number, and that's 9 out of 10. And you don't have another therapy that you can name that gives us a 9 out of 10 success rate. Every time somebody has a surgery and has their secondary surgery and then a third surgery, imagine that they draw your disc out, they take it away, and then you've got this area that doesn't have the same amount of cushion, and you get 100% success with, I had a microdiscectomy and my pain's gone. Do you think a surgeon out there is going to guarantee their work? If you're outside living and you're doing what you're doing and you like to play sports with your kids, or you're slipping, or you have to go shovel your driveway and you have the risk of slipping and falling, are they going to tell you that they're going to guarantee their work against another injury?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not is correct. And so what would it hurt to try something that doesn't involve you limiting your choices? So if you go ahead and you've had the microdiscectomy and they've taken away tissue and you've had success with it, and you go out and slip and fall, or your mom collapses in your arms, or you didn't anticipate that door coming down on you or whatever it was, something that wasn't as heavy, or you didn't count to 3 the same time as the other guy you're lifting the washer with, okay? And you got the brunt of the weight, or you got the end of the sofa that was down at the base of the stairs or whatever it was, and you had to carry it. There's not a surgeon in the world that's going to tell you that their work will guarantee you against any further injury. There's not one in the world. And so what happens after you've had the microdiscectomy and you've lost all that tissue, they say, oh, listen, we've got to open up that space again. So what we're going to do, and when I say open up that space, they're going to try to give you more room for your cord and your nerves that run off of it, the dorsal ganglion, the nerves that run off the cord, they're going to try to give that area more space. The next time that you have a surgery, what they're going to try to introduce is going to try to introduce a spacer into your life. And the spacer can be a chunk of bone out of your own hip. And they're going to push it in between these nearly touching vertebra. They're going to put a piece of bone in there, and they're going to stuff it in there, and then they're going to put some screws in. And they're going to fixate that area so that it's got the height and it can no longer push down on the nerves. And so they've solved your problem by inserting a spacer or a shim into the space where you used to have a cushion. So what that does is that immediately doesn't allow that space that used to have the ability to move and rotate and side bend and turn, that immediately fixates that region. That region won't be a problem anymore, pushing on the disc, the disc pushing on the cord, the disc pushing on the nerves. But what they've done is by eliminating that motion, they've added the burden of what used to be motion at that segment, they've added it to the adjacent spaces. So the vertebra above it, or if there's one below it, those vertebrae now have to make up for the loss of range of motion, which could be 15% of flexion and extension, even greater in your neck. So say you're eliminating that at one level, and you're now putting that burden on the one above it and the one below it. You're going to have a more rapid deterioration of those spaces above and below. And it won't be long before that first fusion requires a second surgery to then take care of the adjacent, now rapidly deteriorating levels of disc. And before you're done, you can end up with 2 or 3 surgeries. And do you think the odds of success go up or down with increasing surgeries?
Definitely go down.
Definitely go down. And the rates are abysmal. And I'm not going to quote, this is Dr. Shalati's, Nathan Shalati, this is what he's an expert at. And by the time you reach your 4th to 5th surgery, you have nearly a 0% chance of success. But people still want things done. People still need help. I've used to decompress people all the time that had fusions previously. And the machine doesn't act like it just goes bam and doesn't just pull things apart. It ramps up so gently that the majority of people that are on it for the first time will complain that they don't think the machine is functioning. They'll say this machine isn't working. And what they're actually describing is the beautiful progressive logarithmic force generation curve that is stealth-like under your body's recognizing that it's getting pulled at a massive rate, and it's causing those discs to draw back in to where they belong. It's causing them to rehydrate and plump up so that the cushion is in a better condition the next day to handle whatever it is that you throw at it. This type of care should be used even preventatively. Now, the majority of the testing that's being done on it right now is being done for what is, quote, disc herniation. So diagnosis of disc herniation. But I'm here to tell you that normal disc wear and tear can be benefited from this device. Anybody who is under the effect of gravity. I mean, you guys will go and you've seen centers, stretch this and stretch that and this, that, and people will spend 80 and $100 an hour, 100 and a quarter an hour on a massage. And that gives them such joy for days. Do you think that massage does anything to alleviate the disc squish? No, it doesn't. It makes the person certainly feel better that they had hands-on care, which I'm a fan of, being an osteopathic physician, second generation, with two siblings that are also osteopathic physicians. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing that I've seen in my entire lifetime that delivers the type of care and promise as does the DRX 9000. As axial decompression promises, it delivers. And I've been fortunate enough to lecture now with individuals who are giants in the industry, people that are recognized. And my one colleague, Dr. Yoakum, his radiographic books are used in well over 100 medical schools and every chiropractic school in the world. And he's our radiographic expert, who is the one who is paying attention to the MRs both prior and then post, and demonstrating in the classroom and to others and with publication that the DRX absolutely causes retraction of the disc material. Things that would otherwise have to be trimmed away. Things that would otherwise would have to be gone in. Somebody would have to make a channel into your body in order to work in a beautiful tight space. And they're getting great at it. They're using ultrasonic devices now that cut away bony spurs, and they trim away disc excess, and they trim away scar tissue, but they still went inside the body. And as we age, we don't quite heal the same way. And so you're left with, I got instant improvement on that, but there's going to be knowledge from just that track alone that my body may scar that way. Or they may have taken off a half and done a laminotomy, or they take off half of the back of the vertebra and leave some of it for structural integrity. But that's still, you're taking out parts that are there to help support this cage and to help make sure that your cage stays in this beautiful pattern that is arranged to not put pressure on the wiring harness that's so important for your tips of your toes to sense where your balance is at. Or the sensitivity in your fingers. When I ruptured my C6 in my neck, I was getting a little bit of a twang in my digit. And all I did was absolutely get on my own device and stretch myself and open up my spaces in a manner that allowed my disc to take pressure off of the nerves. Nobody ever gave me an injection. Nobody had me on a course of steroids. Nobody had me on a course of opiates. Nobody. All I've ever done is use the device that I'm promoting 20 years, about 19 to 20 years after I got my first one. I didn't know that this is what I'd be doing in my later days, you guys. This is something that I have a passion about, and I feel it's now my purpose in order to help spread the word of its success.
The passion is clear.
There's no doubt. I think this is the answer. And you guys have known me for a long enough time, and the audience doesn't know who the hell I am. I'm just some guy talking. But I'm telling you, I'm just letting you know that this is the tidal wave that's coming. And the tidal wave that's coming is going to be the greatest for mankind that has ever been offered for the spine. And I'm going to continue talking about it. I've seen cases that are miraculous. They have We have people that my brother still uses one here locally in Highland, Indiana, and he's got patients close to 90 years old. And they've been offered no promise of any kind of further surgical help or no more shots. They cringe at the thought of shots. And boy, are they comfortable laying back on this device while they're being delivered a vacuum effect and decompression of the lumbar region that's bothering them. And they come in, and the next time they may not be using their walker, or they may not be forward flexed in order to open up their spinal area. You'll see people hunched over like this, hunched over, so they can open up the rear of their spine to pull pressure off of their off their cord and off their roots. You'll see them at the grocery store. They call it the grocery cart sign. They'll be hunched over the grocery cart. You've seen them. You've seen them in Boca. I know you do. And these are the kind of people that can absolutely benefit. They're trying themselves in order to open that space up by leaning forward. Their bodies are without their brain, without actually saying, what would be best for me? No, they're doing it naturally in order to open up. By leaning forward, they open the space on the back of the spine, which alleviates some of the pressure on the roots and on the cord. And that's what you'll see people doing as we age. You don't need to be doing all that. Devices exist that take no more than 30 minutes on the clock. And you could be in and out of a center and have a decompression and recognize the gain that you've gotten from this device. And you'll never, ever be convinced to have another shot, another surgery, to go and get another prescription filled for a narcotic that changes the way your bowels work, that changes your mood. And I can think of the cases of depression, the cases of divorce secondary to opiates, from pain, from spinal pain, the suicides that people have had secondary not to be able to. Hunter Thompson couldn't live with his spinal pain. That's why he put a gun in his mouth. It was something that he just couldn't take any longer. Nobody offered him a DRX, only surgery and shots and meds. It is debilitating. It is the number one problem in the United States is spinal, cervical, and lumbar pain and what is done about it. You're talking about surgeries that can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The average course of care for a disc herniation on the DRX is about $4,000. And that's over 6 weeks' time of care. And insurance companies are saying absolutely no to this. And they're saying, we're going to stay with the approaches that we've had, and they're not embracing it. Well, I love that Hopkins is. I love that. I love that the international community is. I love that the chiropractic community has embraced this. But for currently, it's a cash pay type of a situation. And most people are going to come out of pocket for every epidural. Oh, my insurance only covered 70% of that one, so I only owe $1,200. And I only owe $1,200 in 3 months, and I only owe $1,200 in 3 to 4 months after that. What do you think that adds up to? It adds up to somebody giving you a non-positive result, and it's still costing you money, and you're still waiting to have it done for you, and you're still thinking that maybe there's hope for me this time. My fingers are crossed. Maybe there's hope. I'm telling you, what I'm talking about is more than hope. What I'm talking about is 9 out of 10 people that get on it despite diagnosis achieve pain relief without any adjunctive therapeutics, without any shots, without any meds, without physical therapy. There are companies now, Genesis Spine is one out of Dallas, that they will, if you want to be manipulated, they're not manipulating. All they're doing is selling decompression. You come in, you may get on a warm pack for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You're on the machine for 30. They have you put on your ice bag as you're leaving, your ice belt as you're leaving, and you're out the door. And you'll do it for 5 days a week for the first 2 weeks. And then they'll taper you down to 3 to 4 days, and then to 2 to 3 days, and then to 2 to 1 day. And then you may have a maintenance dose once a month until you feel as if, oh my God, I know I can count on a device if I should slip and fall and ever get a reoccurrence of this problem. And instead of me thinking, oh my God, I have to wait for my same surgeon again to do another perfect, let's pray that it's a perfect outcome. But if they've done a microdiscectomy already, they can't take any more of that tissue. Your body isn't going to have room for that sponge, for that bushing in there. They're taking it out. They're going in and they're affecting you, and they're taking tissue away, and they're causing channels that are going to end up being scarred. The way to do it is to lounge on this device and get decompression. It is the way to go. I know it's cash pay. I know that people are going to have a hard time biting into that, but the people that have, 9 out of 10 of them, 9 out of 10 have gotten 100% relief. That's pretty amazing. I don't know any other devices that can talk that way. And the fact that this is up against insurers, Blue Cross won't pay for it. Okay, Humana's not paying for it. These people aren't paying for this thing, but they'll pay for you to go and stand in line and and you're happy that your prescription only costs you $6. But you have to take that stuff every day. And it slows your bowels down, and you get constipated from that, and you're aggravated, and you're moody, and you have fights with the old lady. And if you don't have your meds, you guys have seen the film Painkillers about the Slacker family, and take more. Take your oxys, 12 hours. If you have breakthrough, take the immediate reacting version, the IR. And people were hooked on things which eliminated their knowledge of pain, but oh boy, were they drugged up. They still are. We're the greatest country in the world with the number of percentage of individuals on painkillers for cervical and low back pain. There's not a country in the world that's ahead of us. We are the world's leader. How does that make you feel? That we're getting people hooked on stuff, and we're not promoting a procedure or a device that can change the way that people are cared for.
Well, Mike, what is crazy is that the United States and New Zealand are the only 2 countries in the entire world that allow pharmaceutical advertising on air, on TV. What are your thoughts on that?
It should be against the law. It should be against the law. People are they're hearing all these song and dances about a med or a solution, that all they have to do is now go in and repeat the name. COVID, Paxlovid. You got these little rhymes that they put them to, and you got these people, and this country is the most obese, and that's probably why we have the greatest amount of neck and back pain, because we're the greatest obese country in the entire globe. And so even with the diabetes meds that they're promoting, and they have people of all sizes and all shapes and all colors on these ads, and they're telling you, hey, this will drop your A1C, or this will drop your baseline glucose. This tablet, and you can have what you want. You don't give up the things you want. Just make sure that you're on our medicine. And they'll do it on the television. They'll show people ordering at the restaurant, and their decisions are being made because they took their med, and they now have a new device that can read what their blood glucose is. And even some of you guys, they even have them for athletes now too. And it's really a great idea. And it sort of gives you an understanding of, oh, I'm running a little low. Maybe I should accelerate a little bit. Maybe I should give a little gas to the vehicle that I'm driving if I'm running a little low. But instead of that, the way they're promoting it is, oh, the medicine brought me down, Now I can make a choice on whatever food it is I want to put into me. And they're not educating as to maximizing the efficiency of the use of the medicine, but they're saying, hey, now that you have knowledge of it and you're on our pill or you're on 2 of our pills, keep on having that house of pancakes stack, okay? Watch that stack of pancakes that comes out of the table at the IHOP, and they're holding a pitchfork in the ad, you know? And we happen to be in the state that makes the greatest amount of dollars on insulin in the U.S., and that's Eli Lilly. And there's not a Lilly lab or a Lilly local in Indianapolis that is a sort of an educational center like you'd have for Apple or, you know, for Microsoft or whatever the hell it is. There's not, hey, come on in and find out how what's best for you without the use of our medication. Everything is with the use of medication. And now that they advertise it, people see this panacea of a solution in between the show that they were interested in. And they know they have these problems, and they go in and immediately ask the doctor, hey, there's this new one that I saw on TV. It sounds like it's the answer to what I need. And they're taking the decision-making process away from the physician. You're going in and you're demanding, and if you don't give it to me, because I saw it on TV, I'm going to go find a doctor who will, because it's the one that's going to change my life. And I don't believe it should be allowed. I don't believe that should be direct advertising to the patient should be allowed, because they don't have training and the use of these meds, and they don't have the understanding of how it interacts with some of the other things that they're doing, or how the lifestyle itself that they have should be altered far before they are put on medication. So what they do is they tell us, oh, take this med and don't worry about putting the effort into yourself. That's how I take it. Here's your solution. It's available in tablet form. Okay, you guys, there was this prick, and he was back in the last turn of the century, and his name was Flexner, Abraham Flexner, and he was hired by Carnegie and Rockefeller to put together a report that discredited all forms of alternative medicine. And when I'm talking about alternative medicine, I'm talking about chiropractic, osteopathic, psychologic, acupuncture, holistic, naturopathic, anything that is non-mainstream. Because these guys had developed petroleum-based products where they could get a dose-related response and have it standardized so that you can say, oh, that little dose is supposed to do this for me and this and this. And it was put into capsules. And what were the capsules made of? Oil-based products. What were the meds based on? Some synthesized product. And so this guy, Abraham Flexner, with his report back in the turn of the last century, closed greater than 80%, closer to 90% of all alternative medicine educational platforms. Well, close to 90% of the schools closed across the United States. If they didn't have labs attached to them, if they didn't have major funding like your Yales or your Harvards or your Oxfords, or, you know, the average guy who was trying to do what I do and say, hey, your structure is important, but let's find a way to get around the fact that you need a pain med to take care of it. These guys were put out of business, and they were given the name quacks. So I was a quack as an osteopath. I was a quack. It was not immediately accepted in all the states that we should be able to practice medicine. Chiropractors were called quacks. Acupuncture is still doubted, even though it's been around for thousands of years. Acupuncture was doubted. Psychological care, where you can talk to somebody and gain an understanding of why you made decisions or what is best for you. Psychological care was discredited. Anything that was natural, that didn't involve a tablet or a pill or an elixir or something that came in a plastic bottle or had a plastic capsule or a plastic matrix or something that was allowed its reactivity, they were discredited. And so I'm not a fan of directly advertising to the public. Believe me, the drug companies love directly advertising to the public. They show you these fantasy changes that people have. And so now you get folks that are seeing that a 7A1C is my new goal. Okay, and people don't know what that means, but a 7A1C is a blood sugar around $1.55. And you guys and me, I'm of Polish Jewish background. Our ancestors never lived in the ranges that are now being told that are our daily averages for Americans. We lived far under that. We couldn't go out and immediately go for a drive-through burger or get something dropped at your door while you're sitting here talking to me over the Zoom call while something got delivered. We didn't have those opportunities. So we didn't eat the way that we eat nowadays. And so the direct advertisement has caused us to have the thought that this new tablet or this new pill or this new capsule or this new extended release capsule, it's going to change my life. And they've skipped their own personal involvement in what could have offered a greater outcome if they had put in the time to understand that it takes a little bit of effort on their part and a little bit of self-discipline and a little bit of personal control. And they immediately go for, I can do what I want because I'm taking my meds twice a day. And this is what I see all the time. And it's so hard to fight this. It's so difficult to fight that kind of stuff. They have billions and billions and billions of dollars. And so the kind of things that I talk about are things that we can do as consumers. And all you have to have is the understanding, and all you have to have is some faith and give it a shot. I'm not a fan of the advertising directly to the patient. I'm not a fan of the course of care that we have for the majority of injuries that we take care of. And all I'm doing is being a little bit more outspoken about it. That's it. I mean, it's the kind of thing where I feel as if we have to change. I believe we must change.
Yeah. So Mike, here's my question for you, considering what you just said. When you're talking to your patients about, how they could better their lives, get healthier without taking, there's so many forms of poison, with the pills, processed food, just all these paths that people go down that they don't necessarily need to. What advice do you give to them, whether that be from a fitness or diet perspective, to help them increase their longevity?
Okay, now, I had the chance to meet Dan Buettner, who is the author of the Blue Zone diet. And the Blue Zone are zones in the world that have the highest concentration of centenarians, people that have lived to 100 years of age. And it's not secret. You can watch Dan's Netflix series, and he's brilliant, and his delivery is simple and just absolutely beautiful. But you'll find that a lot of these places, people actually, and like over in Okinawa, they have this rule where it's 8 of 10. They call it 8 of 10 rule. And if you feel your stomach approaching 80% full, approaching it, you quit eating. You don't wait until your plate's clean. We were taught that 3 meals a day was correct. It's not correct. If we're busy and we're working, you should be fueling sort of steadily throughout the day, the same way you drive your car. When you were born, your mother didn't say to you, hey, listen, you got to wait till 7 a.m. for your breastfeeding. And then we're going to do it again at noon, and we're going to do it again. You're going to get a big triple breastfeeding at dinner. Okay. And you didn't come home and say, hey, it's Thanksgiving. I want triple Thanksgiving breast. Okay. or it's New Year's Eve breast, or it's 4th of July, double, triple breast time. You didn't do that. You knew to ask exactly for what you needed when you needed it, and you didn't give a shit whether or not she was busy or if she was sleeping. You just bothered her because you knew that your glucose was falling and you were called hungry. And you alerted, even though you didn't sound the way you do, you alerted her or you alerted somebody in that house that it was time for a feeding. Okay? It was actually the first signal that you understood as a human being. After your cord was cut and your blood glucose started to drop, that's when you started looking for your mother. It was the first thing that you were able to react to and make noise. And so you understood the signal of hunger earliest in life. You weren't even hours old when you understood the first signal of hunger. And after you were fed and your stomach stretched, you understood the signal of satiety or satiety or full. And that's the feeling you get when that stomach stretches and you have a recognized elevation of your glucose. But you didn't have to be taught this. You were a perfect fueler, asking for fuel when you needed it, being done with fueling when you needed it. And so the one thing that I like to express, and I know that we eat too much processed carbs. We do. In Singapore, the average soda has 12% of the sugar as an American soda. 12%. What does that tell you about what we're pouring into ourselves, huh? I mean, we don't care. They are endorsing us overusing so that they can correct it with a tablet or an injectable or at the end of life, you get a dialysis or, you get these renal failure. You see dialysis centers. How many dialysis centers you guys watch and go up on within a mile of one another? They're everywhere. And that's all end stage diabetes. That's all. My kidneys are shot because I've really beaten the shit out of my systems. And now I have to let a machine do the work that they used to do. But the HbA1cs, the hemoglobin A1cs that they're endorsing, 7, we're going to get you to that magic 7. That magic 7 is still going to get you renal failure. That magic 7 doesn't say that you're going to heal. That magic 7 doesn't mean that you're not going to get infections when you cut yourself. It doesn't mean that at all. We used to exist with a sub 5 A1C. Our glucoses never could have gotten to the heights that we take them with a hot fudge sundae or a triple banana split or that apple pie that you like or whatever it is at the drive-thru, or you get yourself the supersized beverage at the theater and you ingest 900 calories in fluid and another 1,000 calories in popcorn while you're burning 60 sitting on your butt, and you take in 2,200. So what I suggest to people is understanding that they should fuel for necessity, and they shouldn't be putting in these just raw forms of energy that we do in terms of processed sugar. I think that's garbage. I absolutely believe that a diet that's heavier in complex carbohydrates with beans and legumes and root products and I have sweet potato. The people in Okinawa have these purple yams that they eat that are just full of fiber. We eat yams. We can eat root vegetables. We can cook them. We have greens. We have things that most people just walk past, and there's a big part of every store that has these available. We're using far too much processed crap.
Yep.
And we do it in a style that we were taught. When you used to climb up into a high chair, okay, and you didn't know any better, do you think your folks were ever confused as to why you were climbing in a high chair?
No.
No, it was you were showing them you were hungry, right?
Yep.
You climbed up in your high chair. You were 3 years old, Evie, and you were climbing up in your high chair, and they knew to give you something, okay, because you let them know exactly when you were hungry. It didn't necessarily correspond to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was when Evan was hungry and was able to show them that he was hungry. Okay. Then it was time to push Evan's high chair to the table. And Evan's high chair got included at the side of the table. And all of a sudden, it was time for Evan to have meals with the rest of the family. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. What if those weren't the times you were hungry? What would they teach you? They would teach you words like, don't ruin your appetite. It's not time for dinner. Wait till your father's home from work so we can sit there for this communal festival of eating. And you were upset. You were saying, no, I want to eat now. Okay? And you tried to drag your high chair away from the table. You tried to pull it away, saying, when it was over there yesterday, you listened to me. And you didn't give me a hard time about not eating on time or waiting for the rest of the family. And now that your high chair is at the table, you get to hear things like, wait till we all get here. Maybe we say a prayer together, and then you're going to eat what was put in front of you because you're blessed to have it. And you're saying, hold on, that's more than I need. And you try showing them, you're showing your parents that it's more than you need by throwing it on the floor. And then you get punished for that, right?
Right.
So you're taught that it's a blessing to have what you have in front of you. Don't take it for granted. I had people that were raised during the Depression feeding me, and they would say, oh, it's such a blessing that we have it, clean your plates. Or we're all good eaters in this family. You hear that too, and everybody's big. And they start creating big children. And they have them clean plates that otherwise they were done with 15 minutes before, and the child was playing with his food. And you're a bad parent if you don't correct that behavior. And you're told that you're a bad parent. Don't correct your behavior. I just met a family. I just was talking to a family where one of the children doesn't eat at the same time anybody else does. And the child plays around the table, and that child eats before them or after them, but they let them know when the child is hungry. And they said that child is doing absolutely fine. Lean, no health issues.
Mm-hmm.
But it's letting the body still use its own natural cues as to when it requires fueling. So I'm a fan, if you're asking me my best opinion, is I would be done eating when the signal of full is approaching.
Yeah.
If you know that you've got more work to do, then absolutely put in the fuel or have fuel available with you. As I do as a cyclist, I will carry packs of almond butter or cocoa butter or whatever the things that I squeeze into my mouth, because I know I'm running out of fuel as I'm riding. But I'm not going to go and have a grand slam breakfast at Denny's just with the anticipation of going for a bike ride. There's no way in the world I can burn that off. But that's how they've got us living. They've got us living, getting our value. Don't ever go to a buffet. I mean, we go to these. I was just in Florida, and I was ripping on my host a little bit because he took us to the one of those Brazilian steakhouses, and it's like $75 a head. And of course, you're going to feel obligated to have as much meat put into your system as possible. And you're going to be praying to Jesus for a bowel movement 2 days later, and you're going to be suffering. But they tell you how lucky you are that you could go to that Brazilian steak place or this and that. Oh, we're lucky enough to have gone there. And I only had 17 servings. I kept my little card flipped over on the green side. So they kept on bringing me food because I wanted to get my $75 worth. And you end up destroying yourselves. So my biggest thing is stopping when you know you're full, and don't just put simple trash into your system, and try to get more of natural products that grow into your body, your complex carbs, your fibrous products, your greens, your yams, your beans, things like that. You got to get them in. I'm a fan of that.
Agreed.
I absolutely love the Living to 100, the show. I think Dan did an absolutely gorgeous job. He went to 5 spots across the world where the people live the longest, the highest concentration. And son of a gun, they don't have fast food, man. Son of a gun, they don't have places that are convenience stores with nothing but garbage when you walk in. There's not a healthy product in there except maybe a bag of peanuts or some bag of pecans or something like that. But there's nothing healthy. A bottle of water, yeah. But otherwise, it's just trash. And this is what they've got us eating. So I'm not a fan of what they're telling us is right for us here. Okay.
That's extremely insightful. I do need to check out that Netflix, the Blue Zones. I've been seeing a lot about that. I'm interested to see what that's all about. So I appreciate you kind of sharing more about that.
That is, I ran into Dan in Hanoi, and we got to talk a little bit. And he was with Woody. He was with his buddy Woody Harrelson, and they were on a journey. They were biking across Vietnam, and I mentioned to Woody that I liked his monologue that he had just done on SNL. And I told him, I said, listen, I said, despite the fact that you're talking about what you're talking about with vaccinations, which is another completely different subject, I said the real problem in the country and the world is that we're endorsing diets that are killing us and that are forcing us to go on medication and forcing us to go into therapies. And this is what we're endorsing. And he said, have you met Dan Buettner? And I said, no, I hadn't met Dan. And so Dan and I got to talking, and I really liked his approach. And so when his show came out, I paid attention to it. I complimented him, and I stay in touch. But I would tell you that the simplicity that he explains far better than I do. The simplicity always existed. All we have to do is take out your commercial advertising and take out your commercially available garbage that we can drive through and just open a window instead of walking somewhere, because the places that he goes, you'll see that everybody moves. Everybody's on bicycle. Everybody's walking. They don't get their 1,200 steps a day. They're getting 12,000 steps a day. They're going up and down elevation. They're moving. They're having community with one another. They did an experimental case up in Minnesota. They did an entire town, and they endorsed the Blue Zone diet for the entire town. Everybody's med results improved. Everybody's medical lab results improved for just going for a walk with your neighbor, going and making sure that somebody down the street there, if you see them walking, you go and you say hello to them. Community is huge. Having somebody to discuss your daily frustrations with, fabulous. Instead of you eating, like, I'm going to solve my problem by going get my favorite chow and just going to make myself feel better by getting that giant pizza. Okay. And so we talk quite a bit about this, and I'm in total agreement with him, and I can't endorse his show enough. And all it is the simplicity that sort of takes us out of our modern day civilization ability to have what we want the moment that we want it. I mean, if you were living back in Leicester in Germany, if you were living south of Cologne and where your family name is from, how quickly could you have found a pineapple in central Germany?
Not quickly at all.
How about sugar cane?
I would imagine pretty quickly. No?
Nope, couldn't find sugar cane. Sugar cane came from near the Philippines. Christopher Columbus brought it to the Caribbean.
What would we find in central Germany?
You would have found apples. Okay, you would have found beets. You would have found berries. You may have found grapes. But you know what kind of time frame you would have had? You wouldn't have had the entire year to go and get yourself whatever it is at the local Fresh Mart. You would have had what they called a season. Okay. And that season would have been a matter of weeks. And you would have not gotten to that available grape cart by taking your little Saab. You would have gone there by walking. And you would have gotten back by walking. And the day that they ran out of grapes because they were off the vine, guess how many grapes you could find? None. And it would have been like that to the start of the next year's season. So you wouldn't have had the availability of fruit from all over the world 24/7, 52 weeks a year. You wouldn't have had that. You would have had windows of opportunity to go out and get the things that you think are now taken for granted every single day. And you wouldn't have had the chance to put them in you at levels at which you do. You couldn't have had them delivered to you. It wasn't happening. You couldn't have had a soda pop. There was no mountain that I could have found in Poland that I could have collected its dew off of and given me this instant bam of 170 calories per 12 ounces. Okay. It wouldn't have ever happened. I would have had water to go and find. There weren't liquid forms of energy that I could have hit the tapper and just poured it straight into my mouth like you do at your own dispensers now that they give you at fast food places. They just give you your cup, go fill it up all you want. Who gives a shit? It only costs us 2 cents. But what it's costing you in your lifetime is potential erectile dysfunction down the road when you get diabetes at 52 and you can't get your shit together for your lady, okay? Or you take your toes off, or you take meds every day because your sugars are up and down and your body doesn't heal right, or you got other issues based on that. They don't tell you to not get there. They endorse us getting there.
Yeah.
Okay, it's absolutely the worst. So I'm a fan of just being self-aware. You know, I'm truly one that endorses us understanding what we're putting into ourselves, but I like opportunities that afford us the ability to heal without having to spend a fortune on somebody's tablet, somebody's injectable, somebody's elixir, whatever it may be. That's not what I want us to have to solve a problem by buying another product. I'd rather we understood what we had to do by just saying, hey, now I get it. He explained it very simply. I get those cravings throughout my day. I really should pay attention to those little things instead of waiting until the end of the day when I'm totally starved. And then I'm going to go and have more than I need and then lay down in bed with enough energy to run a marathon.
Yeah.
And that's the way they have us living.
Dr. Mike, you've given us a lot to think about here. I'm curious to learn more and look into this DRX 9000. That just sounds fascinating. And on top of that, the Blue Zones show is definitely something else I'm also going to check out. But before we wrap this up, Evan and I have a few rapid fire fun questions that we want to ask you here at the end. So let's start with this one. What is more addictive, caffeine or nicotine?
Oh, I think both of them are about the same. I think they're both about the same. The same way that they give us this zip-diddy-doo-dah, that we count on, they both do it. I think there's the hand-to-mouth action with the nicotine products is something that creates some obsessive compulsive type of a situation too. So it's not only the nicotine addiction, it's the raising my hand to my mouth. Yeah. And that's why a lot of people, when they quit smoking, they go to the Frigidaire and they still go hand to mouth because they something like 12 to 14 puffs per cigarette that they'll draw on. That's 12 to 14 hand to mouth. If you're doing that with a pack of cigarettes, you've got, 240 to 300, raises to your mouth a day, and you sort of get used to that kind of thing. Okay, so I would say they're both pretty addictive.
That's okay. Next one is best restaurant in Chicago.
Oh, best restaurant in Chicago. I like French place, Le Bouchon, or I like the Korean Chosun Oak. But I would tell you that there's a lot of great places to eat. I have to be careful when I go because I absolutely when I go there, I tell people that I'm done eating when I feel my full sign. And they look at me like, you don't want an appetizer. I said, well, if I get the appetizer, I'm not going to get a main course, and I was going to split that. And so intend on me taking food home with myself each time, because I will sit back once I get my full sign, and I say, okay, that signal is the same signal I've known since the moment I was born. And my mother first fed me, and I understood that that was full. I've known that for that long. Okay. So it was an unconscious signal that we had before you could even have memory. You don't go back to first day of birth and have a memory of that. But son of a gun, you had a full sign that day. And son of a gun, you had a hunger sign that day. And they don't teach us to respect and remember those things, because we wouldn't be putting in 3 massive feedings a day. We would have feedings in accord with what we're doing. If you're outside cutting your yard, you need more energy for that than sitting on your butt. But sitting on your butt, you can nibble on things throughout the day and lead a pretty good life without having big portions going into you. Mm-hmm. So when I go to eat, I tell people, I said, you've ordered too much. I have a brother, Claude, who is a gourmand, and he likes to eat. And I told him we were just traveling, and I said to him, I said, Claude, I said, do not order anything else. I'm getting up and I want the check. And he would order another portion of this. I said, Claude, I hate the feeling of being over full. I hate it. Nothing makes me feel more uncomfortable. And then you say, okay, I'm going to walk it off. And you walk to the car. You walk to the car to get yourself in a car, to sit yourself at home, to lay back in a position and just unzip your pants and loosen your belt and say, oh, I'm finally comfortable. You didn't have to put all the wheelbarrow of food into yourself.
Nope.
Even though it was the most spectacular spot in the city, you still have to pay attention to these things. And we're guilty of it. Okay. And as much as I'm preaching today, I'm guilty of it too, on places that I think when they're extraordinary, I'll say, okay, fine. I'll go for a 3-mile walk after this, okay, or do something like that. And I did it in Rome, and I did it all over in Paris, London, all over here, everywhere. We walk. I would walk 10, 12 miles a day. But Buettner's, when Blue Zone guy gets into the Okinawans and they talk about this 8 of 10, you guys know what 10 feels like. You guys know that the stretch, this discomfort, you never want to achieve that discomfort, because then your body has to transit the amount of food that you put in. It has to go through this 26-foot loopy bowel thing of ours that wasn't intended on us putting collegiate footballs in it. It was intended on us stopping. This is approximately the size of my stomach. So approximately this much food should be giving me a full sign. And if you take the time while you're eating, you'll recognize your full sign. You knew it the first day your mother ever fed you. That's how early, that's how important it is. Somebody didn't have to sit with you and said, oh, you're going to have to pass this test, or you better understand this. No, you pushed away from a breast. I pushed away from a breast. And that's not easy, okay? And so it had to be such an absolute signal that we knew we were done.
Yep.
We were a day old, 2 days old. You may have wanted to be fed 6 times that day, but it meant that you were having steadiness to your fueling. You weren't having gigantor that your body had to deal with and move this mass of fuel through a tube that's stretchable. And we happen to stretch the shit out of it. And the number one diagnosis that comes into emergency rooms on days after holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, the number one diagnosis is that of a blocked up bowel, obstipation, it's called. And people come in and share agony because they had a Friendsgiving, they had the in-laws giving, they had our families giving, and you had to have a big plate at each one. And you come in and you just gridlocked your entire bowel system. And people are dying, and it stretches out the colon. And when it stretches the colon, they'll use fancy words like diverticular. And they'll say, oh, you don't have enough fiber in your diet. And I say to that, horse shit. Okay, I say that you tried to put a collegiate ball through your colon when it was meant to have something far smaller. And you sit there and you're praying to Jesus for that bowel movement, and you're rocking back and forth, and you're sweating, and you're trying to get out this BM that should have never been the size that it was. And it just absolutely destroys the tissue of your colon. And it stretches the shit out of it to the point where you have these outpouchings that they've named diverticular. And they won't tell you it's from eating like a damn pig. They'll just say you don't have the right amount of fiber in your diet. And that's crap. It's the size of the portions that we're trying to force through a system that never was intended on us having the size that we're putting through it. It was never meant for it. Don't ever go to an all-you-can-eat meal.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys know this. You guys are now in the best shape you guys have ever been in. Okay. I know you're eating calories that allow you to have the energy to run, the energy to go out and hike, the energy to walk golfing, to go for a swim, for doing the things that you love doing. You guys are now you're doing tries and things like that and doing marathons. You carry fuel with you, don't you? You carry a bar with you. You carry an energy bar because you need a little fuel while you're burning it. You don't go and say, I'm going to have a Thanksgiving meal and just go out for a run now and just burn it off. It ain't what you're doing, okay? So I think we're eating altogether poorly. I think anybody who's offering large portion size, like Olive Gardens, well, they don't serve you like that in Rome. You didn't have Olive Garden sized portions in Rome. I know you didn't have that.
No.
They didn't say, oh, we'll refill your breadsticks, or here's a portion for you to take with you. They didn't do that to you to lure you in their door. They didn't have to do that. And they gave you small things that were tasty and healthy. Not here so much.
No,
They want you to have the giant, man.
My final question to you.
Yes,
my final question is your favorite album of all time.
Oh, Lord. You know, I like In Through the Outdoor.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't say it's I got bunches of them, man, but In Through the Outdoor is Zeppelin.
Yep.
Is a Zeppelin. It was their last album. They never had a tour based on that album, but I think maybe In Through the Outdoor. But there's other beautiful things. I've been listening to Morricone, Ennio Morricone, the Mission. Morricone, I saw in Rome on his 89th year of age. And we went and he played for close to 4 hours with a 125-piece orchestra. And he was just magnificent. That's Morricone. He's from the Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns, and he was fabulous. But Morricone I can listen to, but rock and roll In Through the Outdoor. I like, reggae.
Yeah.
I like, Marley, Cliff, Tosh, Jimmy Cliff, Toots and the Maytals, but I like a lot of people, but recently I missed Elvis Costello. I love him. Lou Reed. I can go on and on and on,
Yeah.
but you guys, but you guys, I want to thank you.
I got one more. I don't know if you've ever been asked this question before, but if you weren't a doctor, what would you be?
Oh, I loved architecture.
Okay.
I loved architecture, and my math wasn't great for architecture. Calculus gave me such a hard time, but I was interested in medicine because I loved how stuff works. But I still dig architecture and engineering. And I would tell you that my understanding of the functionality of the DRX 9000 by Excite Corporation, I had ruptured a disc. I was deadlifting nearly $6. And my form was horse shit, and I ruptured a disc. And I said to myself in that Smith box, oh, that's nice, Mike. You just ruptured a disc. You diagnose these for people all the time. You just did it to yourself. That afternoon, I had a inversion table. I went and got one, and I was pulling myself. I was upside down, this Polish kid, just pulling myself to try to unsquish what I had squished together. And I just wanted to make more space. My mind said to me, make more space for that, Michael, make more space for that. So I got an inversion table. I lived with that inversion table, getting on it for months. And I read about this VAX-D, vertebral axial decompression, down in Florida. And I got on a plane and I went and saw Alan Dyer down in Tampa. And I liked his machine, but the guys down the street making a machine, I liked their machine better because you didn't have to crawl onto it, and it had an upper vest that you held, and it was really, I think to this day, it's the cat's ass. There are a lot of machines that claim the same outcome. There are none that duplicate it. There are none that duplicate the negative pressure that the DRX can achieve, either in your neck or in your low back. And it's now being researched by Johns Hopkins. Thank God that somebody has taken the time to absolutely look into this, because the name Hopkins on there and their embracing of the device, people will not be able for long to say that it's not an accepted form of care instead of just the bullshit that we've been handed for all these decades. Okay. So for me, it's living better, treating yourself with the available options that I'm now going to continue to endorse. So I took my ass down to Tampa, and I bought myself at over $100,000, 18, 19 years ago, I bought myself a DRX. I never had a single shot in my back. I just climbed onto that baby every day for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden that pain, that searing pain down my leg was gone. The pain in my low back was diminishing, and within a month's time, I was in zero pain and hadn't taken a single painkiller. And to this day, I don't have them. And my brother has 2 machines, and I plan on being in this decompression game for a long time. And I really want to make it as the primary form of care for any of our gravitationally influenced injuries that are spinal in nature. There's nothing better in the world. And I would be going to Riyadh next Tuesday if it wasn't for what's going on currently. And I'm praying for I'm praying for somebody to step in, and everybody show some signs of being human. And it needs to happen on all fronts over there. It really does. And I'm not endorsing what's going on. I'm praying for an end. I'm praying for a peaceful end so that people can somehow live in harmony. And I don't know how it looks, but I think all of us at some point have to get together and accept that we have neighbors. And I'm just praying for the best outcome. So you guys, I'm with you. If you should need me at any given time, you reach for me. Okay. I'd be happy to be on for the first 3rd visit.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll be going to Dusseldorf, Germany to talk about the DRX before the end of the year. And I'll be continuing my education in the US, whatever forum they have for me. And I'm trying to get this machine more recognized by the common man so that we can use it and not go under the knife with mixed outcomes. And my dad had 50 years as a family practitioner. I have 2 brothers who have over 30, close to 35 years each. And I graduated in 94 as a physician in New York. And so between the 4 of us, we've got almost 140 years of experience. And I would tell you, never in my career have I seen one single device offer as much promise to that of mankind as the DRX brings for our back injuries and neck injuries. And that's why I'm talking about it the way I am. And that's why you guys had me on today. And I couldn't thank you more. And so I want everybody to pay attention to their diets. Even if you're eating crap, man, call it a day when you feel full. Eat throughout the day, but try to eliminate sugars and your simple processed carbs, man. They ain't any good for you. Okay? So you guys, I can only thank you. Evan, thank you. Miracle, thank you, man. Okay? And you tell Ethan if he's around that I said hi too. And you guys couldn't be doing me a greater honor than having me on. Okay? So that's it for me. Okay?
Dr. Mike, we're honored to have you here, and already looking forward to round 3. So thank you. Have a great rest of your day, and we appreciate you and your time.
And I love you both.
Love you.
I love everybody. Okay, it's my love for all. That's why I do this.